All right, hello people. Welcome back to Untier Talk, where things happen. I guess I don't know. I didn't plan an introduction because honestly, I've been waiting here for like an hour, and then right when we're about to record, Min Min dropped for Smash Ultimate, and I just kind of stopped thinking about Pokemon. Uh, hey Jad, you take over.
Yeah, Pokemon. We battle with monsters and the better player wins all the time.
Yeah, and similar
All the time.
to similar to Smash DLC dropping, there's Pokemon DLC that will be coming in tier shifts soon. That will be very exciting. That transition doesn't work at all because we're actually not talking about DLC. But you know what? I did my best. And we banned Thievul. That's like the big meta thing to talk about. But honestly, I don't know that you even want to say that much. Like people kind of know what's up with Thievul, you know?
Yeah, it didn't really, I guess, occur to the council. Like, to me, it was quite obvious when it got the stakeout and um, the other buffs that it got with Bunny Jealousy and stuff that it was going to be a bit too much for the tier. But I guess people wanted to give it a week, see if it was balanced, I guess. Um, but given how PPL has been going this week and building with it, it's clearly not in a balanced or healthy position. So I think we came to the good conclusion to ban it.
Yeah, the way I keep phrasing it to people is you either don't know if you can switch in or you don't know if you can outspeed it, which like that's a big problem, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
I wish we could have kept it. It's another cool mon.
Yeah,
Um,
I honestly liken the evil terrain archetype like a new rain, like a fresher, newer, like similar to rain-ish style, which would require more skill as well because you could fit that core, that Thwacky or Pinkachin plus Stable Core on basically any team. You just need to sort of like try and build around it. But it could have been really cool, but unfortunately, yeah, it's just clearly too much now in its current form.
yeah, pretty much. Anyway, moving on from that, Open also started. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, you could probably sign up for sub if you haven't yet. There's a lot of fun matchups because there's 512 people in, so that's 200 and something matchups, 256 matchups. So obviously some of them are going to be interesting. I posted some of the more interesting ones from a mainer perspective. There's like uh, Rob Jr. versus Uhuhu. There's Squash versus Tom Holland. There's TKO. There's TKO versus Katut. Some fun ones, you know.
Yeah, I remember TKO complaining that he got a cut round one. He was like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, a lot of people get hard. I'm playing Avarice, uh, who I genuinely don't know, but they've been around PU for a while now, and I've still like not interacted with them at all. I think they came from UU, but I'm not entirely sure.
mm,
Like they've been writing analyses and stuff, and somehow I've just never talked to them.
cool. That should be a fun game then. New friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, it won't be fun when I go out in my own tournament round one, but aside from that,
Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of
I have.
going out round one, the Olivine Octilleries went down hard week two. No,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. That's no
Yeah,
good.
that does. Yeah, I don't know about that one. But I will say the auxiliaries did not put up as much of a fight as I thought they would going into week two. And I think this was a big week for the Clangs as well. Because if they lost to the auxiliaries, it's looking really bad for them. Like, you lose to the auxiliaries, you lose to the team that they lost last week, and you're just like, what type of team are they? Because they looked like a really strong team. It was just like, oh, how much
I'm
how
sorry, you're
much
saying that the
more?
Clangs now?
Yeah, the Clangs. Like, if they lost this week, it would have been bad for them.
They did
But
lose
they
this
they
week.
beat the auxiliaries. They won it quite convincingly. But um,
You mean the
wait,
Claydolls? The
oh wait,
Claydolls are the
yeah,
one
yeah,
that
yeah.
beat
The
the
Clados,
Octilleries.
Clados,
Do
Clados.
you
Yeah,
have the
the Clados.
PUPL thread up? Because I'm looking at it and I don't know how you could do this podcast without it.
Well, well, Clang sounds
Here,
similar,
let
doesn't it?
me link it. There you go. Come on.
I have it. Don't worry.
Okay,
Don't
okay. Oh man.
Yeah. What I meant to say was the Clangs got smoked again, so
Yeah, yeah, but
they aren't looking good.
we'll go from the top to bottom. So first of all,
Yeah.
the Auxiliaries won last week 7-1 with like they had the biggest win last week. This week they got 8-0'd. Last year's PUPL they also got 8-0'd in week 2. Just a fun fact. But last year I think that was the Dedens 8-0ing them. This week it was the solid but not last year's Dedens level team, the Claydolls, which just makes it kind of even worse. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, if you get 8-0'd by the best team in the tournament, you can just say, well, they're the best team in the tournament. You know, they obviously got firepower, but you know, the Cladles are like they weren't the greatest. They aren't the greatest on paper team. So if you get 8-0'd by them, it's kind of like, oh, yikes.
Yeah.
You know?
And like there were some fine games, like Drud ZS, that was like a fine loss. Squash False, that wasn't a bad game, but they also had like multiple real sus games. Blue IM just auto died to Lighthouses' Smash Huntail. Um, Yeezy Nose just messed up really hard for Procopius' throw in that game, and he got a bit unlucky, but like also messed up really hard. Uh, I don't remember Alkio and King Why Not, but I'm gonna assume that was a bad one. I feel like I remember that being not a fun one. Um, yeah, in general, they just had some hard ones. Solinor also got smoked by Gatot. Like that was, yeah, that was kind of the feeling of this series. Really, not all the games were bad. Like I said, especially False Squash, really not a terrible game. False just kind of ended up like hard losing to Bronze or late game a bit. Um, but for the most part, this was a bit of an ugly week for them. It wasn't a very close loss, really.
Mm, yeah, it was unfortunate. I think yeah, the auxiliaries were unfortunate in the fact that like Kush had to get subbed out, so obviously you don't have your like number one all star player playing. It's just sort of like it's just I guess unfortunate that you get 8-0'd, but still you can't have 7 slots worth of players that are just like oh this we can't play a matchup or you
Mm-hmm.
know we can't you can't get unlucky 8 games in a row. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Oh, I'm
it's just
sorry.
unfortunate.
I found Alkio and King Why Not is actually Alkio brought Rain and then lucked King Why Not and then and then
No, it makes sense.
and then that was that. Like he dodged
Yeah.
2 sleep powders and then Huntail crit Wall Rain to just kill it with Crunch, and that was just game. Um, that's gonna be a bit of a theme, lucking people with Rain. When Rain like wouldn't be that crazy strong and it just gets mad lucky. That's look out for that later. But yeah, this is definitely the matchup I have the least to say about because the Octilleries just did not do so hot and are gonna have to turn things around. Obviously, like I know they got 8-0. That's pretty obvious. But even within the realm of 8-0, this was not a great 8-0 from them. I think TJ also like messed Avarice up. Like I think he just led spikes and then clicked buttons and just won.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think I'm pretty
This
sure
was
I
the
remember
game.
being.
This was the game where TJ set 2 spikes and then like killed 3 things with fracture, and then that was kind of the game.
Yeah, it was like a. Was it a 12 tank? Was it 13 turn game?
It was a 13-turn game. Avarice did forfeit, so it actually might have been as much as a 15-turn game, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I remember looking at it and I was like, damn, dude, 13 turns? That it?
Oh my god. Okay, the English patch notes for Ultimate are now out, and I really want to go through them because so much of the stuff people are talking about are like really, really big or affect characters I play. Anyway, back to PUPL. Do you have anything else you want to say about this series? We didn't cover old gens as much because we don't have a cure anymore. Drud CS was like a fine game. Though that was pretty close and interesting. I liked that game, but I don't want to say too much about it in particular because I'll just stick my foot in my mouth.
Yeah, it's just the black and white and Loras game, the ones that I know, is just sort of like
They got
the games weren't really anything.
no.
It was just sort of
Blue IM got 6-0'd by Huntail, and that's just
it's just you
yeah.
should be doing that.
Okay. So moving on, like you said, the Clangs got smoked by the Bearticks, who are now the 2-0 top team. Um, one dead game because after the series was over, Lax and Tony Flygon were like, we don't feel like playing. But aside from that, like this was still kind of close in places. I don't think they had the worst losses. Um, Gum Tasker, Pablo got lucked by Chill Shadow. I don't really know what happened in Toy Time King versus Byron. That was a bit of a weird DPP. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it could have been a lot worse, but Beartix still looked pretty strong. It's not like Beartix just stole the series. They were the better team, but I don't think Clangs looked terrible here. That's kind of like the dichotomy right now.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that will separate the Clangs from being a bottom of the pack team and a playoffs potential team is going to be their building. So yeah, they
Yeah,
have great players in
there's no
most of their slots.
replays.
It's just
Sorry, I thought you were done there. I was just gonna say there's
yeah,
no replays thread up, so I'm trying to pull them all up and talk about specific games real quick. You keep going.
yeah, it's all going to be about you know getting them to guess be cohesive on the same level. It's tough, especially when you have a lot of people who expect to do well. To give them the teams that allow them to be their best player. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them to really bring out the best of themselves. It's going to be. I think they can do it.
Yeah, yeah. I think Clangs don't come out looking as bad as they could have at all, given a 5-2 loss, like on paper. I picked up all the replays, and yeah, there was some fun stuff. Gum versus Tasker. I don't entirely remember, aside from thinking, hey, that was a pretty fun game from both sides worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just speeding through it now because yeah, these teams are actually kind of different. Gum brought a Scarf Lantern. Tasker brought a Floatzel team. I always like seeing Floatzel. I don't know about you, but it's like it's so weird because Floatzel's like not that good, but it's also that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it reminds me of the. You remember the 5+1 store?
Yeah, it does remind me of that a lot actually. Yeah, but
Yeah,
this was a
that's the best
pretty
thing.
close game. Gum kind of just messed up at the end and didn't really have enough for Tasker's Trick Room Masharna. What other games happened? Gum Tasker was God. I really wish we had the replays thread. I feel like that kept last week on so much better, whereas this week I'm just rambling around trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
Esta beat Snaga. That's a pretty solid win for them. Um, like Snaga's been pretty accomplished in PPLs and low tiers in general, so that's like a nice plus. Um,
Uh-huh.
SM featured one of the dumbest games of my life with FLCL or Watashi versus Serene Grace.
Mm-hmm.
This was the one where Watashi accidentally had Flame Body instead of Gale Wings on their Fletchinder, and Fletchinder would have
Yeah.
otherwise just 6-0'd Serene Grace completely and easily, like actual awesome counter team. Like Serene Grace had a Rock Volley, but it got weakened really early, like turn 2, to the point where Fletchinder was just gonna win. But then it was accidentally Flame Body, and it didn't win. And then Serene Grace clicked Poltergeist on a Mon that didn't have its item anymore,
Mm-hmm.
so so that happened. Um,
Yeah.
it was just silly all around. Like can't not talk about that game. The other SM though was Piff versus Lax. That was pretty fun. They both had like fatter teams. It was an interesting game. I honestly have no idea what Lax was doing late game. He made some like interesting doubles that like because it's Lax, I don't want to say it was just like
Pip.
random button mashing, but
You
I
mean
have no
Pippa
idea what was
Snyder?
going on there.
You mean Pippa Snyder, right?
Snyder, yeah, not Lax. Lax was the one who didn't play versus Tony. Yeah,
Yeah.
Snyder made some weird plays late game that I just did not. understand. Um, but if you give them the benefit of the doubt, I don't know. This was a pretty interesting one. Definitely worth checking out.
Mhm.
Um,
Agree.
do you want to say anything about the old gens? Because that's where it gets a lot less fun.
Chishada got lucky versus Pablo, and Rodri beat Slowbroth. That's the only way to put it, really.
Slowbroth did not look good that game. He subbed in for
Yeah, neither did
Ajna.
Rodri.
He subbed in for Ajna. He probably like was not intending to play, and I was in call spectating that with like Yogi and Tasker and Evagero and I don't remember who else, and like that was a real beatdown. Broth was just making weird plays, so
Yeah, I mean Rodri's the king of Wara, so it's to be expected. But you know, usually you want to put up a bit of a fight. There's not
yeah,
really much to say there, but yeah.
feels bad, man. You know.
Um, that being said, I think the Beartics look like the best team in this PPL so far.
Yeah, they've definitely
All these.
been the strongest in the first 2 weeks by a noticeable margin. I think. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also worth like okay, Byron versus Toy Time King is another good DPP game that I don't want to be the one to talk about. They both brought several things that I've never seen in DPP before. Byron had a Soul Rock that was Cosmic Power, Wisp, and Safeguard. No reveal last move. I don't know if it's an attack or if it's does it get Morning Sun this gen? I have no idea. Toy Time King had a Giraffe Rig and a Lapras, neither of which I've like seen before at all. Um, like this was just some weird stuff, and I think a better DP analysis would be able to talk about it more. So if that interests you, like go try to talk about it on Discord or something, because there's probably like a lot to unpack here. That's the feeling I get. It's like
Yeah,
watching Citizen Kane and going, "Oh, I bet that movie is something a lot of people are going to talk about," but I'm an idiot and I can't say anything.
yeah.
Okay, maybe that's a terrible example, but whatever. Okay. Hey, Jad, do you want to talk about how your team lost to the Carcoals?
Osh got lucked, and a couple of, I guess, unfortunate games. Nothing really crazy after that, to be honest. To be honest, it should have been a 4-4. I'd have been. That's what probably should have happened, but um, yeah, the rest of the games were just, I think, the better player won for the most part.
Yeah, strictly in terms of Osh getting lucked, like that was the big change that definitely could have made this be 4-4.
Yeah, you remember, was it Snake or was it PPL last year when Gitut lucked Tasker?
That was Snake when Gatut dodged multiple hurricanes. I remember that.
Yeah, I
And
think this Osh game was worse than that. No bullshit.
I thought it was just one crit at the end. Am I forgetting things?
There was a crit to set up the crit, a poltergeist missed, and a crit turn 2 or 3.
Oh God, I didn't remember all that. Okay, that kind of blows a little bit. Mm,
Yeah, it was. I
Jeez.
was watching the game and I was like, how is Osh still in this? And then I was just like, I can't believe he's won this game. Like the last turn, and then he gets crit, and I'm just like, of course, this is how I deserve that for even trying to think about that. But
Yeah,
it's yeah, that was a hugely like demoralizing game because it was like you you do everything right, you get lucked at the beginning, you bring it back, and then you just get bailed or you just lose to a last turn crit. There isn't much you can do about it. It's just Pokemon.
yeah, that's fair. I did not remember the game being that bad. I was like, oh, it was like a last turn crit or something. No, no, I did not remember that. Jeez. Okay, so that was Osh versus Eternal Spirit. Um, yeah, I think in terms of SS, especially, Carcoal's taking at 3-0 was real big, and obviously the hacks helps. But also Star versus Finch was a very fun game where Star brought an offensive sword stance type null, like kind of out of nowhere, and Finch definitely messed up versus it. Like he double switched expecting it to be defensive and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to abuse this type null," and then it turned out to be SD, and Finch was just like fucked. That just kind of
Yeah,
sucked.
It was a
Um,
good meta call, to be fair, out of the Carcoals, because not many people have been um, switching up their type null sets too much. Like most people have just been going with a standard like U-turn toxic, U-turn normal type null.
yeah, for
So
sure. I thought it
seeing
was
them
really
like switch it
cool.
up, yeah, it was a good call in the meta, and Featherburn also brought a cool team as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think they're so far they're the team that's impressed me most in terms of their like building capability. Like out of all of the teams, I feel like they're probably the most comfortable in this SS meta.
yeah. I really liked what they put up, and like we said, Carkles are going to be very reliant on momentum and stuff like that. And I wasn't the biggest fan of how they beat us last week because I was a bit unlucky or whatever. But they still looked really strong. Fellerburn brought a full electric terrain team with rising voltage Raichu, like multiple abusers, not just Thievul. And that ended up clutching a close-ish game versus Booth.
Yeah, it was a close game, but I feel like Freddy, he just the team was so offensive that it was like it's hard because you can't rest in electric terrain. So any type of bulk just sort of gets anointed instantly by the fact that they can't like recover. But the only recovery move really in PU is rest nowadays because of the Pokemon that we have.
Yeah,
So it's super hard to play like Spike's offense, electric terrain, Feeble, all of those things joined together. Like that's a really good metacle as well for this week only, given that it was a good metacle regardless.
for sure. Do you want to talk about the not Oris SM games because I think those are both very interesting, and you obviously played one of them, so
Yeah. From what I gather with Soul Gazer's game, it was sort of like a game where they both sort of misplayed in parts. It's just Soul Gazer's misplays were far less like noticeable, I guess. Like
absolutely, yeah.
you understand, you could understand why Soul Gazer made the plays that he did, whereas Kepi, you're just sort of like, you could have definitely played that differently.
Yeah,
Um,
and like they both talked about the game on Discord afterwards, and I think they both kind of came to that same conclusion. Where Soulgazer was like, "Yeah, I messed up early. I got hydroed by the Jellicent with my Absol. That was really bad." Whereas like with Kepi, there's a specific moment where he could revenge Quillfish with his Absol or his Rapidash, and he chose Absol, and Absol was slower and got scald burned, and he could have just gone Rapidash, not had that, and probably won. Which was really sad because Kepi made a lot of good plays and put himself like in the lead versus Soulgazer. Should have won that game. Like it was pretty impressive to start, but he really lost full on the end game in a really
yeah,
unfortunate way.
yeah. With That's been the story of when Solgay's been playing PU. It's just like people get an early lead or get a marginal advantage versus him, but the long term smarts and thinking kicks in, and people usually don't have an answer for it. So yeah, that was all that really happened.
Pretty much, yeah. And then there was you versus LST, which was like a big old spike showdown. That was funny.
Yeah. Um, I don't know how many people would want to bring Kanga Spikes versus me, but I respect LSD for trying it. Um, Given that I've played the tier that I played most was like Black White NU. I doubted that people would try and bring Spikes and Kanga and all that stuff versus me. But the reason I did was because I don't know. I didn't want to reveal any of my unbuilt stuff or my unseen stuff, and I wanted to use something that everybody knew what the sets were. So it wasn't like I was trying to hide anything because we'd already lost the week at this point. Um, so I brought the Ferroclef Kanga style team that I'd always brought, like the crutch team that I'd always used, um, just mainly because it was the team that would allow me to have the highest win chance with the least amount of effort. And I had a pretty noticeable matchup advantage given that I had like a Fizz Def Clef, and hazards. The only way that I could really see LST winning was if he won the hazards war, like
I can
convincingly.
only see LST winning if he won.
No, if he won the hazards war, that's what I meant. I just, I just said it poorly, but the if he managed to get all of his hazards down, um, prevent my defog, and then also would get like get his spin off with Cryo.
Mm-hmm.
Given that I had a spin blocker as well, that would have been the main thing that he could have like taken into the late game. But yeah, he let his Pharaoh get chipped quite a bit, and then I managed to get the defog off. So the hazard, I won the hazard war, and then it was just about game management from there on from me.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
didn't even need to use my jelly, which was unfortunate.
No, that's a pretty astute assessment. I don't really have anything to add, I guess. Old gens,
Yeah.
Teddy just stalled Mr. Aldo and had the stall matchup and won. P2 tried to stall Evagero, and Evagero ended up taking that. It was really weird. Um,
Yeah, it was close, but P2 I think is because he isn't as versed or well versed in the tier as Eevee, so he doesn't quite know the interactions as well. So it ends up like, okay, I brought the stall this time.
Yeah, at one point that really helped him though, because Evagero was trying to hope P2 would scout for Thunder Punch Monferno, and P2 just didn't and stayed in on the Monferno with his Frillish, and Evagero was real mad. I really thought Evagero lost the game, but then
same.
But then the Signal Beam Duosion managed to like confuse and just generally beat the Spadef Zwilus, which was like, oh. I wouldn't really like. I wouldn't even call it like a hacks. It was just like, oh, the Duosion just beat the Zwilus. I didn't realize.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I would say about P2's game is that he really mismanaged the Duosion situation with his Zwilus. Like, he had a lot of wood beads to Wish and then Heal Bell and then bring Zwilus in so that it wasn't really threatened by the Signal Beam. But he sort of messed that up. So, yeah, he ended up losing that game because of it.
Mm-hmm. And then there's GA versus Metal Gross. Again, I can't say too much for DPP, but I do think in general this is a pretty interesting week for DPP. GA had like a Torque Hole and a Banded Rhydon and some fun stuff. A Leaf Blade Bellossom to beat Calmine Golducks. That was really funny. And then Metal Gross just crit it with Ice Beam anyway. But GA still managed to clutch this one out. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. Again, I don't entirely get DP interactions. It's just a lot about like I don't understand the threat list and how you play with no preview and all that. But it was fun to spectate. It was probably worth looking at. I also think it came down to speed type possibly. Or no, I think Metal Gross had to win a speed tie and hit Focus Blast for his Electabuzz to beat GA's Perugly. Yeah. Interesting stuff there. This should have been last week. We have a Kieran and Deep B's like fucking whatever. Not terrible, but fine. This week I think Deep B was really interesting. And we can't talk to it as much. Oh well. I guess that moves us on to the last matchup, my team's matchup, the Meowsticks beating the Dracloaks. Let's go team. And we even got like unlucky in this set, and we still managed to pull out a 5-3 win, which I'm really happy with.
Even got unlucky. Let's go.
Yeah, the point, like I feel real happy. Our team turned it around real fast. That's kind of my perspective. That being said, Dracloaks are really weird, right? Because in SS we 3-0'd them. We won all 3 SS games, and in old gens and stuff, they won Oras and Black White and half the SM. But I thought their SS was like, oh, these were really close games, all of them. It wasn't like they just got smoked, so not a terrible showing from them. Whereas in old gens, I was just like, oh, they just got kind of lucky, not like actually doing, like I feel like the results really went the reverse of how the set actually felt. If that makes any kind of sense, I don't know. That was my perspective as like the player on the team. SS, all 3 of our winning SS games, we brought Galarian Mr. Mime. Complete coincidence. People pointed this out. Absolute accident. It just so happened that we fit Mime on all the teams. We didn't really mean to. It's just like, oh, this is a mon that would fit. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think with Mr. Mime, it's got that nice compression where you can go for a Choice Scarf spin set. and it not be useless. So like you got some great compression going on there.
I think
Just as general.
all our scarf like at least one of them was scarf, but just not spin. It was more to do with the fact that like rhyme overall is better. I still think that, but mime is better in a meta where Thievel is broken, and that's where we're using it.
Yeah, fair enough. Especially when you have the stakeout shenanigans going on, you need to have there's some stuff above that 307 speed tip.
Right. The best way to beat Thievel is just to not really have to switch out of it, which is relatively doable, to be completely honest. And Rhyme gets forced out. Mime doesn't. That's just the big difference. Um,
Yeah.
so we have Asa versus 49 and Termi versus Lopunny Kicks, both very similar games where I think our prep was pretty good. We take a very early lead in both games with like just using strong stuff, and then the late game got a little bit shaky, but still was like well played enough to kind of clutch it out. Um, and then Bugsinator versus Bayoba was kind of the same, but our early game lead was so strong and like our matchup was so good that it would have taken a lot to kind of throw this away. Plus, we dodged a high jump kick that made things even better. But frankly, I don't know how we would have lost this game. Uh,
Uh-huh.
we had a Combine Moonblast Masharna, and he didn't really have checks to that.
Yeah.
Like we sacked Leafeon, it did literally zero this game, and it was the main breaker on the team, and it didn't even matter. So that was an interesting one. But I genuinely think Termi versus Lopney Kicks and Asa versus 49 are were like two actually pretty good games to spectate. Uh, like in an unbiased, not just because my team won sense. I think these were pretty fun. I think SS in general this week was actually like really fun to spectate and look at this new meta and what people are using. You know, things like Stars offensive type null and whatever. And these games had some fun stuff. Although we didn't reveal our wackiest stuff this week, there were multiple times where we brought like funny things, and they simply did not actually get used. So, oops.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I've kind of dominated my team so far. Is there anything you want to talk about? SM, SS, any of that?
Not really. I think of all teams, in terms of the building, I feel like the Meow Sticks and the Carcoals are probably the two that I've been the most impressed by so far this tour.
Really?
Given how the meta is going to be constantly updating, in terms of SS, in terms of how the meta is going to be like updating, I feel like those two teams are probably in the best position to be, at the forefront, consistently winning an SS over the course of the season.
Honestly, I'm happy to hear that because I've never been that like confident of a bit. Like I'm always hating on my builds and all that, but yeah, I think things got a lot better. I built multiple. I built Bugs Ninja's team. I built Rob Jr.'s team for uh, SM, where he kind of messed Ziri up a little bit. Um, like that was nice. That team really worked out, which I was happy about. It was a grass spam with Leafeon and Victory Bell, um, and we definitely had like a pretty fun matchup for this. But
Yeah, yeah,
like that was part of it. I was like, oh, grass spam seems like it could be pretty cool here. Let's try that, and it like absolutely
yeah.
worked out. And Ziri, to his credit, had some actually pretty fun stuff. There was a banded primate. There was a Gracium Stealth Rock Camerupt, which did nuke Argellison. That was funny. And there was also a Scarf Kadabra. And this one I won't say is as good because I genuinely cannot think. Like, what is Scarf Kadabra for? I have no fucking idea. I'm so lost there.
It's quite speedy, I guess.
Like, it's
Still
fast, but you're in a meta with so much pursuit, and like his team needs a revenge killer. It's Banded Primate, not Scarf. It's Scarf Abomasnow, but you also need something to beat like speed boosting sweepers because Abomasnow is too slow to do that. And instead of Sash Kadabra, you go Scarf Kadabra. I don't get that. Like my only explanation is it's a Primate lure because the team is a bit Primate weak. Like Fairy Volley is the only switch in really. But even like I don't know, it was really weird. Not the worst tech I've heard of, but I just don't. I don't get that.
Yeah, now that you say Scarf being like an offensive check to that is extremely useful, but yeah, it's still this is one of those things that like Selena comes up with, and it's just sort of like, okay, I sort of see what you're going for here, but I don't really understand it. But it works, so I guess you
Mhm.
shrug your shoulders and move on.
Yeah. The other SM game, Telenet brought Fire Spam with a Gastrodon and another Abomasnow. Like they both kind of used some fun stuff. Telenet's I think went a lot better. Um, People are trashing the end of the game because we had Trick Room Jellicent without a water move, and that ended up losing to Simisear. Uh, I think this game was actually pretty winnable. I was a fan of this team. I made it with TSR. We just kind of messed the mid game up, and it definitely would have been hard. Um, but we didn't really end up using Crabominable much this game. Honestly, the most interesting thing play wise was just the very beginning of the game when Silvally Poison like 1v1 to Bronzor and kept rocks off. That was just whack. Like, I could watch that interaction 100 times. If we had won that game, I would have clowned on that so much, but then we fucked up, so I can't talk.
Yeah, I mean,
But you know what
key
I mean,
thing
right?
for
That
me is
shouldn't happen.
yeah, I guess, but
I'm just
key
making
thing
fun of
for me,
like Talena did good. I'm just making fun of him.
yeah, for me, I think the key you were talking earlier about the Shadow Ball Ice Beam coverage on Jelly. Um, and to be honest, it's not a bad set like idea. But the problem with it is that you need to be damn sure that somebody's bringing like a Drampa or like a Lurantis or basically CTing me. If you're
Yeah,
CTing me, you bring those types of Pokemon, and then Ice Beam becomes really useful. Um, Pom Poms and all that type of stuff. So, but when you're expecting an offensive matchup, you want generally the two stabs because that's how you're going to deal damage, right?
yeah. Icebeam did
De-
nothing.
dealing,
Ice Beam did nothing. Ghostium was 100% better in this matchup. Like Talena brought
yeah,
Fire Spam and we had no water move. Um,
exactly, yeah. Even if you had like Surf or something, like it would have been much more useful. But yeah, that's the key thing. Sometimes is that like
yeah,
having that bit of I guess extra like awareness about how your opponent is going to treat you as a player. If they know that you're going to be bringing bulky stuff, they're probably going to be bringing Stall Breakers, Ice Weak stuff. Um, but yeah, in this case, I'm pretty sure it's then it tried like a general thing. I'll bring this, and if he brings Stall, I'll be good. If he brings offense, I'll be good. Just a general type of thing. So
yeah. This
yeah,
was
something
definitely
to note for next time.
it was definitely Talenet's comfort zone. You know, the lefties sub combustion or protect combustion, all that. I think yeah, as a general prep thing, one thing I think we struggled with this week is we had some text for specific things, but not as like a I'm going to counter team someone, as just that I think this tech will be good, and it didn't always like we didn't lose the game because of it all the time, but it definitely didn't always work out. We are like, oh, Icebeam Jellicent kind of makes sense here, and it would be really nice to catch a Drampa, but we weren't like, is Telenet actually going to be bringing a Drampa? It was just more of like a general meta thing. As a prep thing, I think that's something I struggle with in general, where I'm like, this is a good tech. Is it actually going to be useful against the opponent? Probably. I don't know. Into old gens, the more recent ones we just got fucking unlucky in. GGOPW versus TSR. That game just kind of sucked. Like TSR missed two Stone Edges versus a Misdreavus, then got a like really really low roll with Monferno to not kill it with Flare Blitz, and then got full parried by Thunderwave. And all we needed to do was to kill it and win the game, and then it lived, and we didn't win the game.
Mm,
That was
true.
that was just sad. Like that just happened. And then
Yeah.
versus DNB, he brought Rain, and this is the other game where Rain like shouldn't have been that broken, but then just got really lucky. Um, like what can you do? He dodged an important circle throw, and then he got uh, two unfavorable rolls with his Mantine as well to like just do so much breaking that he shouldn't have been able to do. And then late game he dodged an overheat where at the time I was like it wouldn't matter, but in hindsight like if he didn't dodge overheat then I would have had a 50-50 to win the game anyway. That's really silly. I don't I'm now 0-2 and I'm like fine with that because like a lot of my record is supporting people. Like Bugsnader's 2-0 now, and I've been helping him out with team and stuff like that. But I hate being 0-2, and this is the kind of loss you take. I was real unhappy about this game. I was
Mm-hmm.
I was fucking. Anyway, a lot happier though about Brufasa versus Hasup because this was the game where we hacked them. This wasn't us stealing a game that we probably would have lost. This was just us getting so lucky that Hasup really was not going to be able to do anything. Like, it was just, oh, early game hacks, and there's literally nothing you can do about that because sometimes you just can't win games of Pokemon. So that fucking sucked. It's not like they completely hacked us. We got a little bit of that in return.
Yeah,
I liked our chances. I really did like our matchup. It just didn't fucking matter. And who knows if Hasup had text to beat us or whatever because we crit a Leaf Storm and then we dodged a Blizzard and then we got another crit, I think. Yeah, all of that.
pretty lucky.
So that was silly, and that's week 2. There you go. So standings wise, Beartics are looking to be the strongest team right now. They're the 2-0 team. But Carkles are also 2-0. They beat Dedens and Meowsticks, which is like power ranked at least stronger teams than the Beartics. So even though it felt like Beartics are more dominant, whatever, Carkles are like ahead of them on the sheet and have had tougher matchups. Um, Clay Dolls are also 2-0, which we still didn't think are that strong of a team and have played much weaker teams. Like they just beat the Octilleries, you know. They've been doing it. Dedens and Meowsticks both at 1-1 in like reasonable place to do well, but could also fall off. Octilleries took the 0-8, but are still at 1-1 because they won last week. And then both Drakloaks and the Clang Gang are at 0-2 and kind of struggling. They both had some difficulties this week. No? I thought you'd have anything to say.
No, yeah, no.
Awkward podcast silence. Yay.
Yeah, there's not really much to say about that game. It's just sort of like, yeah, they struggled. Tough.
Yeah.
Tough scenes.
Like they can both pull it around. But that was an ouch. And obviously Octilleries are also going to need to figure out something after the 8-0 they received.
Yeah, 100%.
So week 3, Octilleries want to pull it around, but they're facing the Carcoals. That's a yikes. Drakloaks also struggled a bit, but they're facing the Dedens. That's another yikes. We've got the Beartics versus the Meowstick, which obviously Beartics are the strongest team. I wish we were facing them later, because like I'd be fine with like my team, the Meowsticks, taking a loss to the Beartics. It's like they're the Beartics. That's acceptable. We'll do better next week. We'll still make playoffs, but it's just like an annoying time to have to take a loss if we have to. I still think we can fucking do this, but like if we do lose to the team, it'll be annoying to start out with the 1 and 2, and then Clangs are facing Clay Dolls, which is another chance for the Clay Dolls to face like a relatively weaker team and start out with a 3-0, which would put them pretty strong. Like regardless of who they've played, starting out with a 3-0 in the first 3 weeks is like a really nice beginning position. And I do favor the Clay Dolls in this matchup, looking at what they've got. Not significantly. I think Clanks can pull it out, but I think Clay Dolls do look a little bit better on paper here. Matchups that in particular look cool. I think Yeezy Nose versus Star should be fun if Yeezy can get his hands on a good team. They're both good players, but also relatively fun to watch. Finch versus Tlennet. Tlennet's now moved into SS. He's been playing SM, so I really want to see what he does in SS because I'm a Tlennet fan. Yeah.
Tlennet fanboy.
Durza versus Drud. That'll probably be a fun DPP. FLCL versus Bugsinator or Watashi. Watashi and Bobby Dagan are the two people I call by their old names the most because their new ones are just weird. Watashi versus Bugsinator. Both strong players. Both 2-0, I think. I think Bugsinator is like really picked up the tier well with what he's been playing with and even like some of his own builds, even though he hasn't played with his own builds yet. I think that'll be pretty fun. Anything else you want to add?
Not much really. I'm just excited for this new week. I think the Dens will hopefully get a bit better at the building. And yeah, I'm excited to see more new teams, to be honest, especially with Evil out of the tier. That was a crutch a lot during that week too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
a
hopefully.
lot of Thievul. Although interesting, the usage stats for the most used mon in SS was Dusknoir. Shoot me. The
Yeah,
most used
we saw
mon was
more Dusk.
Dustnar, but then the second most used mon was Mawile, which is like, okay, fine. But Mawile had a win rate of 14%. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it was the third most used mon. Okay, Thievul and Dustnar were tied for first. Then Mawile's next with a win rate of 14%. Like, Jesus, what happened there? I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Um, One final interesting observation I just had is some people who had um, really rough games last week are not getting subbed out yet. Managers are keeping a lot of confidence in people. Like
yeah, it's a
Blue IMs and Solinor both got smoked on the Octilleries. They're still in. Bayoba kind of got messed up on Dracloaks. He's still playing. Tlenet's like keeping confidence in him. Broth got messed up by Rodri, and he got moved into SS instead of SM. Stuff like that. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I think it's like just like an interesting managerial thing to see that people are still keeping confidence in those players who've struggled a bit recently.
yeah. I think especially when it was easier to drop people given it was a 6 week or sorry a 5 week main season last year, but now it's 7 weeks, 2 week playoff. You need you need to be more like have more faith in your team than you used to, um, and you can't just cut and change and swap as you please because yeah, you still need majority of your players to be putting in the effort for a longer season like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can definitely hurt motivation if you're immediately taken out, which matters a little more over the longer season as well. So I think that just about covers it. But obviously, we've
Yep.
got our one famous final segment, world renowned Hijad's Gimmick Corner. Um,
Cool.
I
So
normally I go first, right? If I have a gimmick and then you go.
go for it.
Yeah, just because we like to end with like the better stuff, and my stuff is not as good. Mostly because, like I said, we brought fun stuff. We didn't reveal it, and I don't want to say what it was because we're actually gonna probably end up using it. Um, but I have been playing around with Galarian Linoon plus Seeking as a pivot core with just parting shot flip turn. it's really it's really fucking fun. I cannot express how much fun this core is. I've actually had so much fun playing in like just random room tours purely due to this core because it's so enjoyable to just like be pivoting and spamming knock and all that stuff with them. And both of them on their own are just fun. Glynoon, we saw a little bit of a usage pickup last week because it's an offensive Thievul check as well. So that's something. But yeah, together I really rate this core as being enjoyable and I like it. And the other thing I'll mention is itemless Masharna just beats the poltergeists, and it's still like Krokorok knockoff does like 29 to 32 or something like that. So you
Yeah,
don't
you don't have to deal
you
with
don't always
stuff.
you don't really need like Colber's nice to take an individual dark move less, but now like without Thievul, most of our dark moves are knockoff, which are things you're going to take multiple times. It's coming in on things like throw or pawn you don't want to switch it on pawn. Coming in on things like throw or taken from things like Krokorok or whatever. So itemless doesn't really affect that much. And then it just lets
Yeah,
you not have an item when Poltergeist comes a calling. So I think it's definitely good. Better than Kasib Berry, all that stuff. Fun to
yeah,
use.
I agree. Yeah, the itemless Machine is something that I was personally like sort of messing around with, just sort of thinking, okay, is this worth it? Um, but yeah, I ended up not. I don't think we ended up using a Machine this week, so that never ever ended up getting. But something that I was happy with that we were using as like a countermeasure to Thievul was Ockerberry Mawile.
Mm-hmm.
That was our main splashable check to Thievul in this meta, just purely because nothing else could really deal with it that well. Um, I thought it was quite cool though, because you end up as a Mawile taking a lot of fire hits, more than you'd expect. So stuff like from Heat More, you can set up Stealth Rocket from that, or you can tank a Heat Crash from Stonejourner. Like stuff like that, small things like that can really help, especially when you're dealing with a Mawile. Yeah, it made it a lot more usable over the course of this year, or over the course of this week, especially. Sorry.
Yeah.
As far as like cooler things, I was messing around with the Slowpoke.
Yeah. So I still haven't used Slowpoke at all, but I think it actually looks kind of okay on paper, and I really want to.
Yeah, it sounds like a Marini that can actually be useful.
Well, I mean, Marini T-Spikes though, that is useful. It's a Marini that's useful outside of the one broken hazard is all.
Yeah. Outside of T-Spikes, Slowpoke, it's a cool thing. Yeah, it's especially I think T-Wave and Teleport, they make complete sense. T-Wave and Teleport, yeah.
Yeah, like I've been spamming that with BHM for how long? Because just is such a good combo.
Yeah, so it's like do it as how you like. I think Slowbro is now
Slowpoke.
Hopefully, it's broken. I think it's going to be the best Pokemon in the game.
Okay. Yeah, regen teleport. That's a fun and cool system.
Did you see the discussion in the PU Discord a few days ago?
I don't know, maybe.
Wigglytuff.
Oh yeah, Wigglytuff gets it's gonna be our first Wish teleport mon once it actually comes to the tier.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Minus priority passing wishes with it's like 180 base HP or something.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
What's its HP? It's like it's got trash defenses but great HP, right? Wigglytuff has 140 HP and then 45 and 50 defenses. Yeah, so it gets to pass 140 HP wishes on minus priority teleports, and I'm so hyped because it's not gonna be broken. It's got bad defenses. It's got mediocre typing. It's got no speed. It's not that strong, but it has like Wishport and rocks and all this coverage with like Gleam and Fire Blast and T-Bolt and whatever. Knock. Yeah, it seems really fun. Like we talked about other trash mons we're looking forward to, like Deden, like Emolga, like Dunsparce and whatever. I don't think we've actually mentioned Wigglypuff on the pod yet, but I'm hyped, dude. Most of what we're getting honestly looks like, I don't really care, or looks broken, like Lilligant or Midnight Lycanroc or like Bouffalant or whatever. I'm like, whatever.
What? Midnight Lycanroc, bro? That thing's gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm just not that hyped for it. I'm like, whatever, fine. Like even if it's ridiculous, I just don't really care that it's coming. Wigglytuff, I'm like, oh hell yeah, I want to make Wigglytuff great, you know.
Make Wigglytuff great again.
No, okay, we're ending it now. You did the joke, you ruined it. All right, sorry guys. We'll have to be back next week. It just can't be helped.